I have spent my life exploring the hidden depths of the human psyche, uncovering aspects of the mind that most people never dare to examine. Among the most powerful and elusive of these is what I call the shadow. The shadow is that part of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to acknowledge the qualities, desires, impulses, and memories we consider unacceptable, shameful, or dangerous. And yet, it is always present, silently influencing our thoughts, emotions, and actions. To ignore the shadow is to live a fragmented life. We may appear confident, rational, and socially acceptable on the surface, yet beneath lies a turbulent undercurrent of suppressed emotion, unrecognized needs, and unintegrated experiences. The shadow manifests in subtle ways: irritability, projection, self-sabotage, recurring mistakes, or even the unconscious admiration and envy of traits we outwardly reject in others. Many fear the shadow because it confronts us with truths about ourselves we would rather avoid. It forces us to face the darkness within, the anger we hide, the desires we deny, the fears we ignore. Yet the shadow is not inherently evil. It is merely unlived potential, unacknowledged complexity, and unrecognized aspects of the self. Engaging with it is not a descent into darkness, but a courageous journey toward wholeness. Shadow work begins with self-awareness. You must observe your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment, noticing where you react disproportionately, where you feel discomfort, or where you project your negative emotions onto others. Projection is one of the clearest signs of the shadow at work. When you dislike or criticize qualities in someone else, it often reflects what you have disowned in yourself. Acknowledging this is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. I have observed that individuals who never confront their shadow often experience internal conflict. They strive to be virtuous, successful, or acceptable by external standards, yet they feel a persistent emptiness or dissatisfaction. This is because the energy of the shadow, if not acknowledged, finds other ways to express itself through destructive habits, anxiety, depression, or compulsive behavior. Integration of the shadow allows this energy to be harnessed constructively, transforming inner conflict into personal growth and creativity. The process of shadow work also involves recognizing the dual nature of human traits. Qualities we reject in ourselves may contain tremendous potential. If brought into conscious awareness, aggression, for instance, can be destructive when suppressed, yet it can become assertiveness, determination, or protection when integrated. Sexual desire, envy, or competitiveness may be socially taboo or shameful, yet these impulses can fuel creativity, motivation, and self-expression when acknowledged responsibly. Fear often prevents engagement with the shadow because it threatens our self-image. Many people cling to the persona they present to the world, fearing that acknowledging darker impulses will make them appear weak, immoral, or unworthy. Yet the persona, the social mask, is not the totality of the self. True wholeness comes from reconciling the persona with the shadow, allowing the individual to act authentically while embracing the full spectrum of human experience. I advise those embarking on this journey to practice honest self-reflection. Journaling, meditation, dream analysis, and attentive observation of emotional reactions are invaluable tools. Dreams, in particular, often reveal shadow elements through symbolic imagery. The characters, scenarios, and feelings in dreams frequently represent aspects of ourselves that the conscious mind resists acknowledging. Interpreting these symbols requires patience, attention, and openness to what may initially feel threatening or uncomfortable. Shadow work is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is experiential. It requires courage to feel uncomfortable emotions, confront past trauma, and recognize impulses that society has conditioned us to suppress. It demands a willingness to embrace discomfort as a teacher, to allow fear, anger, or shame to surface and be observed without judgment. This conscious encounter transforms what was previously unconscious, giving it form, understanding, and direction. One of the most common obstacles in shadow work is resistance. The mind resists what it perceives as threatening, and many people stop short of confronting the most challenging aspects of themselves. This resistance often manifests as rationalization, distraction, or projection. Recognizing resistance as a natural response rather than a flaw allows the practitioner to persist, gradually chipping away at the defenses that obscure the shadow. The rewards of engaging with the shadow are profound. Integration leads to greater authenticity, emotional resilience, and psychological freedom. Relationships improve because projection diminishes, empathy deepens, and interactions are no longer tainted by unconscious reactions. Creativity flourishes, as previously suppressed energies find expression in art, innovation, or meaningful work. Most importantly, a sense of wholeness and inner harmony emerges, replacing the tension, shame, or emptiness that characterized life before shadow work. It is important to understand that shadow integration is a lifelong process. It is not a single act of confession or insight, but a continuous practice of self-observation, acceptance, and conscious action. Each encounter with the shadow reveals new layers, previously hidden or denied. Progress requires patience, courage, and commitment. There is no shortcut to wholeness, but the path is rich with insight, growth, and profound transformation. As we continue this series, we will explore the practical steps to recognize the shadow, understand its influence on daily life, and engage with it consciously. We will examine how to identify projections, interpret dreams, integrate repressed traits, and ultimately transform inner conflict into personal power. The shadow, though feared, is not the enemy. It is a companion on the journey to self-knowledge, an essential element of the psyche that, when embraced, unlocks creativity, authenticity, and true psychological freedom. The journey is challenging because it confronts our deepest fears and vulnerabilities. Yet, the path of shadow work is the path of courage. To face oneself fully, to acknowledge what we hide, and to integrate those aspects consciously is to step into a life of depth, richness, and authenticity. It is through this integration that we move beyond superficiality, beyond the limitations imposed by social conditioning, and into the realm of true personal power. In the next part of this series, we will begin with practical exercises to identify your shadow, including the recognition of projections, habitual reactions, and recurring patterns that reveal hidden aspects of the self. Only by shining light on these hidden areas can we begin to transform them into sources of strength and insight. As I have emphasized, the shadow exists within every human being. It is not something external or foreign, it is a part of your own psyche that you have refused to acknowledge. Recognizing your shadow is the first and most critical step towards self-integration. Many people live their entire lives without truly encountering it, and yet it guides their choices, reactions, and emotions in subtle but powerful ways. To recognize the shadow, one must become vigilant in observing oneself. Notice the qualities that provoke strong emotional reactions in others: anger, jealousy, irritation, or envy. When you feel an exaggerated response to someone else's behavior, consider that it may be a mirror of an aspect of yourself you have disowned. This is projection at work, one of the most revealing tools in identifying the shadow. The traits that irritate you or cause resentment are often the very traits you deny in yourself. For example, if you find yourself deeply annoyed by someone's arrogance, ask yourself whether you suppress pride, entitlement, or ambition within yourself. If you are disturbed by someone's aggression, perhaps you have repressed your own assertive impulses or anger. This self-reflective process is uncomfortable because it confronts the ego, the part of the self invested in a positive self-image, but it is necessary for growth. Journaling is a practical method for recognizing your shadow. Record daily experiences, focusing on moments of strong emotion, conflict, or self-criticism. Ask yourself, what triggered this response? Why do I feel this way? Are these feelings pointing to a hidden aspect of myself that I have denied or avoided? Over time, patterns emerge, revealing consistent themes that hint at the structure and nature of your shadow. Dream analysis is another powerful avenue. Dreams communicate in the language of symbols, often bypassing the conscious mind's defenses. Characters, actions, and events in dreams frequently embody shadow elements. Pay attention to recurring figures or motifs, especially those that evoke fear, confusion, or strong emotion. These images are not random, they are messages from the unconscious, guiding you toward parts of yourself that require recognition and integration. Resistance to recognizing the shadow is natural. The mind fears what it does not understand and clings to the familiar. Even when familiar patterns are destructive, denial, rationalization, and avoidance are common defenses. The person who refuses to confront the shadow may feel safe temporarily, but the shadow exerts its influence nonetheless, often in ways that cause confusion, self-sabotage, or emotional suffering. Awareness is the antidote to this unconscious power. Once you begin recognizing the shadow, you will notice its influence in relationships. You may react disproportionately to certain behaviors or feel inexplicable tension with particular individuals. These reactions are not solely about the other person. They are reflections of your unacknowledged traits. Observing this dynamic allows you to separate external reality from internal projection. The ability to identify projection reduces conflict, fosters empathy, and provides insight into the internal structures that govern behavior. Another aspect of recognition is understanding how the shadow shapes desires and fears. Often, we suppress certain ambitions, interests, or talents because they seem unacceptable, risky, or socially inappropriate. This suppression causes internal friction, manifesting as anxiety, dissatisfaction, or repetitive patterns of failure. Recognizing these suppressed potentials is liberating. It reveals opportunities for growth, creativity, and fulfillment that were previously inaccessible. It is also essential to observe the shadow's subtle influence on morality and self-judgment. People frequently evaluate themselves according to rigid standards imposed by society or culture, condemning natural impulses as wrong or unacceptable. These judgments push aspects of the self into the unconscious, strengthening the shadow's hold. By observing without condemnation, you begin to reclaim these aspects, integrating them into a conscious understanding of yourself that is both realistic and compassionate. Shadow recognition is not a one-time event, it is an ongoing process. New layers of the shadow may emerge as you develop, face challenges, and encounter life's complexities. Each confrontation brings opportunities for insight, growth, and transformation. The process requires courage, patience, and a willingness to endure discomfort in pursuit of wholeness. As you practice, you may also notice that the shadow manifests in creative and productive ways. Traits once suppressed such as ambition, assertiveness, sensuality, or curiosity can be redirected toward constructive goals when integrated consciously. The energy that fueled self-doubt or fear can instead drive innovation, artistic expression, or personal achievement. Recognizing the shadow is not about eradicating darkness. It is about converting hidden potential into conscious, constructive energy. Finally, recognize that shadow work is deeply personal. No one else can do it for you. Guidance, mentorship, or analysis can assist, but ultimately, the work requires self-reflection, honesty, and commitment. To see the shadow is to confront yourself without pretense or avoidance. It is a journey toward authenticity, where you embrace the totality of your being, the light and the dark, the admirable and the uncomfortable, the known and the hidden. In the next part of this series, we will explore practical exercises to engage the shadow, including dream interpretation, reflective journaling, and confronting emotional triggers. These techniques will provide concrete ways to interact with the shadow, transforming fear into awareness and repression into conscious integration. Recognizing the shadow is only the first step. Awareness without action leaves the unconscious unintegrated, and the shadow continues to influence your life in subtle, often destructive ways. To truly benefit, you must engage with the shadow consciously. allowing the disowned parts of yourself to emerge, be acknowledged, and ultimately integrated. Engaging the shadow begins with observation without judgment. Most people react to unpleasant emotions with denial, suppression, or rationalization. Instead, observe these feelings as neutral signals. Anger, envy, fear, or guilt often indicate a repressed aspect of the self. For example, a surge of jealousy toward a colleague may reveal your own unacknowledged ambition or insecurity. Recognize this, and you begin transforming unconscious energy into conscious insight. A practical technique is dialoguing with the shadow. In journaling or meditation, speak to the part of yourself you usually avoid. Ask it why it behaves the way it does, what it wants, and what it fears. This process externalizes internal conflict, making it tangible and approachable. You may discover hidden motivations, suppressed creativity, or unresolved trauma that your conscious mind has ignored for years. Dreams continue to be invaluable at this stage. While recognition focused on noticing patterns, engagement involves interpreting symbolic messages. Pay attention to recurring figures, frightening situations, or emotionally charged experiences in dreams. Ask, which parts of myself are represented here? What am I afraid to confront? Recording and reflecting on these dreams allows you to converse with your unconscious mind, fostering understanding rather than fear. Projection also serves as a guide. Notice traits in others that trigger strong reactions, positive or negative. If you admire or despise someone intensely, examine why. Often, these reactions reveal qualities within yourself that you have rejected or underdeveloped. By acknowledging these traits, you reclaim them from the unconscious, gaining new capacities for self-expression, resilience, or empathy. Shadow engagement requires facing fears directly. Fear is the primary barrier between consciousness and the shadow. Many individuals avoid difficult emotions, memories, or desires because they seem threatening. Courage does not mean eliminating fear but moving toward it intentionally. For instance, if you fear expressing anger, practice doing so in safe, controlled ways. If you fear asserting yourself, take small steps to communicate your needs clearly. Each confrontation diminishes the shadow's unconscious grip. Another vital aspect is embracing contradictions. Humans are not consistent or wholly rational. The shadow often embodies qualities that conflict with the persona. You may be disciplined in work but indulgent in private habits, compassionate toward others but harsh with yourself. Recognizing and integrating these contradictions allows for greater wholeness. The integrated self is flexible, aware, and authentic, capable of holding opposites without fragmentation. Creativity emerges naturally through shadow engagement. Repressed aspects, emotions, desires, or impulses can be expressed through art, writing, music, or problem solving. The energy once locked in fear or denial becomes a resource, fueling innovation and self-expression. Many creative breakthroughs, I have observed, originate from conscious dialogue with the shadow. Integration also improves relationships. Unacknowledged shadow traits distort perception and communication, often causing conflict or misunderstandings. By engaging and integrating these elements, projections decrease, empathy increases, and interactions become more authentic. You no longer unconsciously blame or idealize others. Instead, you relate from a grounded understanding of yourself. Engagement requires discipline and patience. The shadow is vast, and its layers unfold gradually. You will encounter resistance, discomfort, and occasional regression. Progress is non-linear, but every step, no matter how small, strengthens self-awareness and capacity for integration. Consistency in practices, such as journaling, meditation, and reflective observation is essential. Finally, remember that engaging the shadow is not about moral judgment. The shadow is not evil, it is unlived, unacknowledged potential. It contains the energy for growth, strength, and creativity. The work is not to eradicate it but to bring it into consciousness, allowing it to be expressed constructively. The shadow, once integrated, becomes a source of vitality, insight, and authentic power. In the next part of this series, we will explore the transformative effects of shadow integration, how embracing the shadow changes behavior, enhances creativity, deepens relationships, and fosters a sense of completeness and inner harmony. This is where shadow work moves from recognition and engagement to transformation, revealing the profound potential hidden within every human being. Engaging with the shadow is not enough. Recognition and dialogue allow awareness, but true transformation occurs only through integration. Integration is the process of consciously accepting, understanding, and incorporating disowned aspects of yourself into everyday life. It is through integration that the shadow becomes a source of strength, creativity, and authenticity, rather than a hidden force of disruption. The first step in integration is acknowledgement without judgment. Many people reject or shame themselves for having undesirable traits, assuming these qualities make them bad or flawed. The shadow is not morally evil. It is simply the sum of unrecognized aspects of the psyche. To integrate, you must allow yourself to feel these qualities without condemnation. Anger, envy, fear, or desire are natural parts of being human. Observing them objectively allows you to channel them constructively, rather than repress them. Once acknowledged, the next step is finding constructive outlets for shadow energy. Traits or impulses that were previously suppressed often manifest destructively if left unchecked. Aggression can appear as passive aggressiveness, repressed desire as unhealthy obsession, and fear as avoidance or procrastination. By intentionally expressing these energies through creative, professional, or social channels, the shadow is transformed into a positive force. For instance, assertiveness can replace hidden resentment, and ambition can replace envy. Integration also involves conscious choice in behavior. When a shadow trait surfaces, you must decide how to act upon it. Do you respond reactively, as the unconscious urges, or intentionally, guided by conscious awareness? This choice is the essence of personal growth. Over time, repeated conscious decisions strengthen the ego's ability to incorporate the shadow without being controlled by it. You begin to act authentically, grounded in awareness, rather than unconsciously repeating patterns of suppression or projection. Relationships are profoundly affected by integration. When unacknowledged, the shadow often distorts interactions through projection, blame, or conflict. Once integrated, you relate more authentically, recognizing when others trigger reactions that are your own unconscious projections. This awareness reduces misunderstandings, fosters empathy, and allows deeper, more meaningful connections. Integration does not only improve self-perception, it transforms how you perceive and interact with the world. Dream work remains a critical tool for integration. Dreams often dramatize conflicts between the conscious self and the shadow. By reflecting on these dreams and consciously applying insights to waking life, you strengthen the connection between the unconscious and conscious mind. Integration is the bridge that allows the energy of dreams to inform decisions, actions, and self-understanding in real life. Another powerful method of integration is creative expression. The shadow is a reservoir of untapped emotional and psychological energy. Art, writing, music, and other forms of creative practice provide safe channels to express these energies. This not only prevents repression, but also cultivates originality and innovation. Many profound works of art and literature arise from artists' engagement with their own shadow, translating inner complexity into forms that inspire, challenge, and illuminate others. Integration also requires ethical reflection. Bringing the shadow into consciousness does not mean acting on every impulse. Awareness allows for responsible expression. For instance, aggressive tendencies can be integrated as assertiveness in negotiations, leadership, or self-advocacy, rather than harm to others. Sexual or competitive drives can be integrated as creative energy or healthy ambition. By consciously guiding the energy of the shadow, you convert potentially destructive impulses into constructive action. The practice of self-compassion is essential. Confronting the shadow can provoke discomfort, shame, or fear. Treat yourself with patience and understanding. Integration is a gradual process, unfolding over a lifetime. Progress is measured not in perfection, but in increased awareness, control, and authenticity. The more gently you approach the shadow, the more willing it becomes to reveal its insights and guidance. Integration also strengthens resilience. When previously hidden or denied traits are acknowledged and harnessed, the psyche becomes more robust. You are less vulnerable to unconscious reactions, emotional turbulence, or external stresses. The energy once scattered in resistance or repression is now available for conscious use, enhancing problem solving, creativity, and adaptability. Finally, integration brings wholeness. The shadow is not separate from you, it is a part of your identity. True psychological health and personal growth lies not from elimination of the shadow, but from its inclusion. You become a more complete individual, capable of understanding and balancing the light and dark aspects of yourself. This wholeness manifests as authenticity, clarity, emotional depth, and a profound sense of inner freedom. In the next part of this series, we will explore common challenges and pitfalls in shadow work: resistance, projection, and fear, and how to overcome them, ensuring that engagement with the shadow leads to sustainable personal transformation. As one delves deeper into the shadow, one inevitably encounters resistance. This resistance is natural, for the mind fears what it does not fully understand. Most individuals cling to familiar patterns, even when these patterns limit growth or cause suffering. The shadow challenges comfort zones, self-image, and habitual ways of coping. It confronts the ego with uncomfortable truths, which is why avoidance is common. Fear is a central obstacle. People fear that facing the shadow will reveal them to be bad, unworthy, or unlovable. These fears are projections of internalized judgments and societal norms. The truth is that the shadow is neither inherently good nor bad. It is a reservoir of potential energy, creativity, and undeveloped aspects of self. Confronting it requires courage, not moral fortitude. Courage is the willingness to experience discomfort in pursuit of growth. One method to overcome resistance is incremental exposure. Begin with smaller aspects of the shadow: minor fears, suppressed emotions, or everyday irritations. Reflect on these elements in a controlled, conscious manner, noting their influence on thought and behavior. Over time, you develop the capacity to face deeper, more challenging aspects of the shadow without being overwhelmed. Incremental engagement builds confidence and diminishes the power of fear. Mindful observation is also essential. Observe emotional reactions as they rise, especially those that feel disproportionate or puzzling. These reactions often signal the shadow asserting influence. Instead of reacting automatically, pause and inquire. What part of me is reflected in this response? What is this trying to teach me? By consistently practicing observation, you transform resistance into insight. Projection continues to play a critical role. When strong emotional reactions are triggered by others, it is often the shadow speaking through them. Identifying these projections allows you to reclaim disowned traits and neutralize unconscious conflict. For example, persistent irritation with a colleague's arrogance may reveal suppressed pride or ambition within yourself. Recognizing this connection transforms irritation into awareness and personal empowerment. Another effective practice is dialogue with fear. Fear, like the shadow, contains valuable information. Rather than avoiding it, ask fear questions. What am I afraid of? Why does this make me uncomfortable? What can I learn? Often, fear highlights areas in which the shadow holds untapped potential or unresolved trauma. Engaging fear consciously allows the energy behind it to be redirected constructively. Compassionate self-reflection is vital. Confronting the shadow can evoke shame or guilt for past actions, suppressed desires, or hidden impulses. Approach these aspects with curiosity and kindness. The purpose is not self-punishment, but understanding and integration. Compassion reduces defensive resistance and opens the path to authentic transformation. Resistance may also manifest externally. You may encounter skepticism, ridicule, or misunderstanding from others as you explore the shadow. These external reactions often mirror your own internal judgments. Maintain commitment to the inner work despite outside pressures. The journey is personal, and true progress depends on internal consistency rather than external validation. Shadow engagement requires patience and persistence. Transformation is gradual. The shadow does not surrender its power easily. Each encounter deepens self-awareness, strengthens emotional regulation, and enhances conscious choice. Persistence overcomes inertia, gradually turning fear and resistance into familiarity, understanding, and integration. Creative expression can also facilitate overcoming resistance. By channeling the energy of suppressed emotions into art, writing, or movement, you give the shadow a voice without allowing it to dominate behavior destructively. Expression becomes a bridge, converting unconscious tension into conscious creation. Finally, understand that fear and resistance are signs of progress. They indicate that you are encountering significant, previously hidden aspects of the psyche. Rather than avoiding them, meet them with awareness, reflection, and deliberate action. The more you engage fear and resistance consciously, the more the shadow transforms from a source of unconscious limitation into a wellspring of strength, creativity, and self-knowledge. In the next part of this series, we will explore the profound transformation and benefits that result from full shadow integration, how embracing and working with the shadow enriches relationships, fosters creativity, and cultivates wholeness. After recognizing, engaging, and overcoming resistance to the shadow, the final stage of shadow work is integration, where transformation becomes tangible. Integration is the conscious incorporation of previously denied or repressed aspects of the self into daily life. It is here that the shadow ceases to operate unconsciously and becomes a source of creativity, strength, and authenticity. Integration begins with acceptance. The shadow is neither good nor evil, it is a part of the whole self. Accepting these qualities without judgment allows for conscious engagement. When you embrace the shadow, anger can transform into assertiveness, envy into ambition, fear into discernment, and shame into self-compassion. The energy once confined to suppression becomes available for constructive action. A key aspect of integration is consistent reflection. Daily observation of emotional responses, triggers, and projections ensures that shadow elements remain conscious, rather than slipping back into unconscious control. Journaling, meditation, and dialogue with oneself are tools to maintain this awareness. Each reflection reinforces the bridge between unconscious impulses and conscious decision-making. Integration also enhances relationships. Previously, disowned traits projected onto others may have caused tension, misunderstanding, or conflict. With conscious integration, these projections diminish, enabling clearer perception and authentic connection. You are no longer unconsciously reacting to triggers, but responding from awareness, empathy, and understanding. Relationships deepen, and interpersonal interactions become more fulfilling and harmonious. Creativity flourishes through integration. The shadow is a reservoir of energy, emotion, and untapped potential. When incorporated consciously, this energy fuels artistic expression, innovation, and problem-solving. Many of the greatest artistic, scientific, and personal achievements arise from individuals who have successfully engaged and integrated their shadow. The unconscious tension becomes a generative force, no longer a source of disruption. Another aspect of transformation is emotional resilience. Confronting and integrating the shadow strengthens the psyche, reducing susceptibility to stress, anxiety, and compulsive reactions. You become capable of experiencing intense emotions without being overwhelmed, and you learn to channel these feelings constructively. This resilience is a hallmark of psychological maturity and self-mastery. Integration requires ethical guidance and conscious choice. Awareness alone is not sufficient. The shadow's energy must be directed responsibly. Impulses such as aggression, desire, or competitiveness, once understood, can be expressed in socially constructive and personally empowering ways. Ethical reflection ensures that the shadow's power enhances life, rather than causing harm. Personal authenticity is the most profound result of shadow integration. By reconciling the persona with the shadow, you no longer live solely according to societal expectations or external roles. Instead, you act from a place of inner coherence, where thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are aligned with the whole self. Authenticity fosters confidence, clarity, and a deep sense of fulfillment that superficial success cannot provide. Shadow integration is not a one-time achievement, it is a lifelong process. The shadow has layers, and new dimensions emerge as life unfolds. Challenges, relationships, and personal growth continue to reveal previously hidden aspects. Each encounter is an opportunity to deepen understanding, expand awareness, and refine the integration process. Patience, persistence, and self-compassion are essential companions on this journey. The culmination of shadow work is psychological wholeness. Wholeness does not mean perfection, it means embracing all facets of oneself, light and dark, admirable and uncomfortable, conscious and unconscious. Through integration, inner conflict diminishes, emotional energy becomes available for constructive use, and the individual experiences a profound sense of inner harmony. This wholeness is not only personally transformative but radiates outward, affecting interactions, creativity, and life purpose. In conclusion, the shadow is not an enemy to be vanquished, but a partner to be understood, engaged, and integrated. Its energy, once unconscious and often disruptive, becomes a resource for growth, creativity, and authenticity. Shadow work is the courageous journey of turning fear into awareness, resistance into insight, and repression into conscious action. Those who undertake this path cultivate inner freedom, emotional depth, and the capacity to live fully and authentically. By committing to the recognition, engagement, confrontation, and integration of the shadow, individuals unlock their latent potential. The rewards are profound: enhanced relationships, creative breakthroughs, emotional resilience, and a deep sense of personal fulfillment. Shadow work transforms the human experience, offering a life of authenticity, power, and wholeness that transcends superficial appearances and societal expectations. This completes our series on shadow work, the part of you you're afraid to face, revealing the journey from unconscious repression to conscious integration, and ultimately, to psychological freedom and authentic living.